I want to talk about fear. Fear is one of the biggest problems that we have on this planet. It's one of the lowest vibrational emotions, and it surrounds us not only in others, but definitely in ourselves. It's what keeps us at that low vibration. And if you're dealing with things like negative entity attachments or depression, then fear is the main culprit. It's the one that attracts the negative entities, and it keeps us in that depressed state. So I want to talk about fear, understanding it, getting a new perspective on it, and maybe starting to release your fear in general. So let's get started. You know what it is about fear is that every animal that exists has it. Even at the microscopic level, they have fear. They have the ability to propel themselves away from a dangerous chemical, which we see in lab experiments. So if the tiniest organism has fear, you better believe we do. And you know it. You know what it feels like. You know what it's all about. But it's so multifaceted and multi-layered. We often think of fear as just the fight or flight response. But fear is in every thought, every day. We are constantly evaluating ourselves and our situations and our decisions and everything with a microscope of fear on what it is. It's very difficult to extract yourself from it. It changes your body chemistry, and you tighten up your muscles and your shoulders and your gut, and you tighten up your mind, and you can't see past things because of fear. It's just such a huge part of our lives. So in order to address fear, you really have to address things at all kinds of levels. There's the conscious level and the subconscious level. Our subconscious minds are way more in charge than we even realize. We are constantly having that fear response without even feeling the effects of it. It's guiding our decisions at a subconscious level. Well, let's talk about fear briefly. And that is, anytime we have fear of a situation, we generally are afraid of the thing that's least likely to happen. I know that makes no sense, but the more likely it is to happen, the less we're afraid of it. We actually believe that it's going to happen so much we don't have fear about it anymore, but we shift our fear to being fear of the consequences of this thing that we would have been afraid of. The other thing to realize is that fear is just a prediction of the future, and that's all that it is. You cannot be afraid of something that has already happened. You can't even be afraid of something that is currently happening. You can only be afraid of something that has not happened. And once it happens, you are not afraid of it anymore. You shift your fear to being of the consequences of the event. So let's do the bee example. I like this one. It's nice and clear. If a bee has already stung you, you are looking at that and saying, well, I'm not afraid I'm going to be stung. You've already been stung. If a bee is currently in the process of stinging you, are you afraid that it's going to sting you? No. You might be afraid of the pain that you're going to experience. You might be afraid that you're going to have some sort of allergic reaction to it, but you are not afraid of the bee that is going to sting you. The only time you can be afraid of something is if it hasn't happened yet. And so once you've had the experience and you're no longer afraid of it, now you move into the fear of the next thing that might happen. Oh, I'm afraid that I'm going to have that allergic reaction. To give you a little bit of an understanding of what I was saying about the less likely it is to happen, the more we're afraid of it, I like to use this example. Let's say you're working for a corporation that has layoffs, and your boss comes to you and he says, okay, in 2 weeks there's going to be a layoff, and you're most likely not on the list, but there is going to be a layoff, and I just wanted to let you know. There's still a chance you're on the list, but you're probably fine. Well, what would you look at that? You'd be scared to death that you're going to be on that list. You wouldn't be able to sleep every night. You'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get fired. Well, maybe not. Probably not. He said probably not. But oh my gosh, but I did this. And then anything you do, you'd be terrified. You'd be terrified to go to the boss and talk to him because you wouldn't want to show up on his radar. Whatever. You wouldn't want to make a mistake during those 2 weeks. Oh my gosh, I can't make a mistake. I'll definitely get fired if I do that. I'm afraid to make a mistake. But let's take it the other way. Your boss comes to you and says, in 2 weeks there's going to be a layoff, and you're probably on the list. I mean, there's a chance you won't be, but right now you're on the list of going to get laid off. Are you afraid you're going to get laid off at that point? Not at all. You know you are. You've already decided, oh, well, I'm definitely getting laid off. But what you're going to do now is you're going to shift to being afraid of, oh no, I'm not going to be able to get another job. I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. I'm not going to be able to keep my car, my house. Oh my gosh, I might have to move to a new city or change careers altogether. Oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm going to do. This is a disaster. So fear always finds a way to dominate your life. So here's the other scenario. Let's continue that example. That layoff day comes and you're let go. There's this period of time where you might cry or you might feel devastated. But soon after, whether you talk to a friend or you just realize it yourself, you find, well, you know what? Maybe that was the best thing. Maybe I wasn't right for that job anyway. Maybe my boss wasn't that good or the work wasn't satisfying. Actually, I know it wasn't, but I was doing it anyway because it was a paycheck. So maybe because of this, now I'm going to be able to get a different job. Maybe I'm going to find a better company with better benefits and better bosses and better coworkers, and I'll be way more satisfied. Maybe I'll have to move to a new city. Well, maybe that wouldn't be so bad. I can move to a new city, meet new amazing people, find a new place to live. Wow, it could be really a great adventure. This happens eventually anyway. It's part of your recovery process. It's part of your finding energy to continue on with life. It's still a survival mechanism. So wait a minute. You've been worried to death for 2 weeks to say, oh my gosh, this is the best thing that ever happened to me? You could have totally removed those 2 weeks of misery by coming to that conclusion earlier. Why didn't you right away say, well, this could be great. I'm going to get a new job and everything's going to work out great. Well, it's because we're so programmed to be in fear. So really, I want you to look at everything and say, you know what? I'm predicting a future result that is terrible when I'm fearful. I am always predicting the worst possible outcome. And do you know how likely the worst possible outcome is to actually occur? Extremely rare, extremely unlikely. Somewhere in between, somewhere very light in many cases. If you go to a doctor and you have a test done, you might be scared to death for the 2 weeks while you wait for the test results to come back. And then generally the test results come back, oh, you're fine. Oh, it's something minor. Oh, we can take care of that with this or that. It's not a big deal. This happens all the time, but we work ourselves up into this fear prediction that they're going to come back and say, it's cancer or whatever your worst fear is. It doesn't usually happen. Sure, it does happen every once in a while, but the percentages are quite low. And of course, the news and people telling stories don't help you because the newsworthy stories are always the ones that come back with the worst possible result. Oh my gosh, my friend had this happen and it turned out that they had knuckle cancer and now they're going to die, right? So you always hear the worst possible stories, the worst possible results, so you apply it to yourself. Why are we so attracted to the worst possible results? Because it's another survival instinct. You need to understand all the possibilities so that you can circumnavigate them and survive. So we create the doomsday scenario as a survival mechanism. And the other thing that we do is we try to understand and put things in boxes. Oh, it must be this, and we're going to put it in this category. Oh, it's probably that over there, and we're going to put it in that category. That generally doesn't help us with anything except that it's the brain seeking comfort. Oh, I have a negative entity because I played around with the Ouija board. Of course, that makes sense. That's why I have a negative entity. Does that make the negative entity go away? No, it doesn't have anything to do with it. But your brain feels a little bit better because it can see a cause and effect. It might not have had anything to do with the Ouija board, but you believe it, and so now you put that in a category, there's where it goes. And now I don't have as much fear around it, sort of. But you still do. You still have all the problems. You still have the fear that the negative entity is never going to go away. You have the fear that it's just going to keep getting worse, and so on and so forth. When actually the approach that you really need to take is to sit down and go, actually, I know that I'm not going to deal with this for the rest of my life. I know that I'm going to be able to remove this negative entity. I know that I'm going to be able to handle this situation. I'm going to be able to get another job. I'm going to be able to work with my family to overcome whatever the problem is that they are going through or that I am going through. When you have faith, when you have that knowing that it's all going to work out, then it will. If you have fear that it's not going to work out, you open yourself up to the chance that it might not. So it's your approach and it's your knowing that will make a huge difference on all the things that might happen to you in this life. So what I'd like to do right now is do a fear retuning activation. This is one of the many retuning activations that you can get off of my website that will help alleviate the fear experience or the anger experience if you download the anger one, or the frustration, or et cetera, et cetera. These are all geared to retune your emotional state from the very dangerous, problematic one that you're in into a much more manageable version of that emotion, so that you can evaluate the situation, so you can decide whether you really should have that much fear, or you really should be that frustrated or angry. Generally, once we do these activations and we remove some of that, the negative experience from it, then you evaluate it and you say, oh, well, there was no really good reason for me to be that afraid or that angry or that frustrated. But we can't see that when you're in the throes of the situation, when you're dealing with that so much. So I'm excited to provide this fear one for you in this video. And I'm excited for you to go online onto my website and download some of the other ones as the ones that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. These alleviate so much. They're so powerful, and they're fantastic tools to evaluate your life and to get some control or some handle on the emotional experiences that you have. Okay, so go ahead and close your eyes and take a nice big deep breath. And relax as you exhale. Feel yourself sinking into the chair. Feel yourself being supported by the seat that you're sitting in. You can relax into it. You can let earth pull your body toward it in a loving embrace. All we're going to do here is we're going to retune your emotional state. Emotions are just frequencies. You are tuned into a frequency of fear that is very high. We're going to tune you into one that is much calmer, much more relaxing, and give you the ability to evaluate your situation to decide if you should have that much fear over whatever it is that you're afraid of. It's very quick and simple. I'm going to say breath in. When I do, you're going to take a nice big deep breath. You're going to hold it at the top, and you're going to wait for me to make a loud, explosive sound. Breath in. Awake! Good. So take a couple more deep, deliberate breaths. Allow yourself to release that frequency of fear. And when you're ready to be calm, to look at your life completely differently, then you can open your eyes. There it was. It's that quick and easy and simple. So now, as you move forward, you can use this. You can come back and rewatch this video, or you can download any of the other ones off of my website, one of which I'll leave a link to in the description below. It's another one that you can get to help you with nervousness. And remember to use these while you're feeling the feeling. You can use them when you're not feeling that emotional experience, but it's most effective while you're in the throes of that negative emotional suffering. It will relieve it very quickly, and you'll be able to evaluate your situation much better. Okay, so thank you so much for watching this video about fear. I hope it helps you understand a little bit more about how fear works, and you can get a better handle on it. It's one of the major emotions that we talk about in my program to help people with depression and negative entity attachments, addiction, and so much more. I love you unconditionally, and I'll see you in the next video.